Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this evening's ACY Securities webinar, live forex market review. That's what's coming up in a moment. And following on from this webinar, we have the quick start webinar that is going to be at 8 o'clock. I have a link for that if you'd like to follow on with that one. In that webinar, we're going to be taking through a look at, it's quite a basic webinar. It's for people that are just starting to trade or want to start to trade in the forex market. We're going to have a look at the trend, what that is and how you can determine it, and then we have a new strategy for those that are just starting out. So I don't know whether that is you, but that being said, that webinar we're starting at 8 p.m. I have a link for it before I conclude this webinar. I'm going to be finishing around about 10:02, so I can finish up this webinar and get into the next webinar. So without any further ado, let's move along. Before we get into it, please read through the disclaimer, any questions to the chat box or the question and answer box. And if you're on our YouTube live stream, I cannot see the chat, but you're more than welcome to watch or join us in the webinar using the link provided. So everybody, please read through the disclaimer. Azur, you're telling me you haven't had a bad trading week, so that's always good to hear. Not been an easy week. The market's very consolidatory as we wait for the job figures coming out. So we'll see what the job figures brings on Friday. All right, let's move along. Now, if you don't know me, I'm just looking at the names. I think everybody knows me tonight, but my name's Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities. And I trade the forex market full time, been trading for more than 15 years, mentoring for more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is there on screen, duncan.cooper@acy.com. Through the week, you can connect with me at our website, acy.com. Go to the Market News tab or go to our YouTube channel, ACY Securities Australia. And you can connect with me on Twitter and LinkedIn there if you want to follow me. And through the week, our analysis is getting put through our Telegram channel. So if you want to get access to that, contact Nathan.bray and he will give you access to that. Plus, he can give you access to my chart layouts and templates as well for MT4. So really anything to do with the webinars, if you have any questions, access to the Telegram, or any account opening questions that you might want to ask. Do you want to set up a demo account? Any of those sorts of questions, just contact Nathan. So I'll put his details in the chat. There you have it. All right, let's get straight into it. So let's have a look at the news front, first of all. So coming up tonight, we got at 10:15 p.m. Queensland time, and then 10:30, US ADP non-farm employment change, and then the unemployment claims. Unemployment claims can definitely affect the market if they are significantly different than expected. Midnight as well, then we have the ISM service PMI data, job openings. So more than a few pieces of information here can definitely affect the market this evening. And then, of course, tomorrow we've got the Canadian job figures at 10:30 and the US job figures. All right, the market, I'm sure, is eyeing up to see what the job figures are doing, because if we are definitely getting inflation under control potentially in the US, like they've been discussing here in Australia too, is we should potentially see the job figures moving up, but we will see. If they're not moving up and they're even improving, forecasts suggest they're going to improve from 3.7 to 3.6. So we will wait and see. The market will be clearly looking to that. And of course, next week, we've got CPI data for the US coming out on, I think it was Wednesday, and Thursday, the PPI data. So inflation figures for the US coming out next week. So it's going to be volatile on these news days. All right, let's get into the charts. So we'll start with the US dollar. So it's been heading up all week, slowly but surely grinding up. So really, we are stuck between, on the weekly chart here, rather range bound between long-term support, long-term resistance. In actual fact, we're kind of in the middle of that range, but we are forming a higher bottom to the last lower top. So we may be changing trend to up here, maybe heading up towards the top of the range. Of course, those news items coming out over the next week are going to be the dominant theme, and which will determine if that is the true reflection of what's happening at the moment. Day chart though, just showing you a clear uptrend here at the moment. So I'm anticipating nothing really changing from the news front. We're just moving up towards maybe 105.69 over the course of the month, of course, the next 2 months. S&P 500, still in an uptrend. It's just having a retracement here. And this significant level of resistance we moved above, which is monthly resistance, has become support on the last pullback. Couldn't quite get to it. So it's holding quite a strong upward trend there on the S&P 500 at the moment. But it's not normal that we see both the S&P 500 and the US dollar moving up in the same direction, but that's what we have at the moment. If you wanted to trade this, I would be looking for a pullback to the 62% level, the 79% level of the current day chart range. And of course, that needs to pull back a little bit more to get into those potential buy levels. All right, let's start with the euro dollar. Now, was earlier in the week looking at the top of this range that we're kind of sitting in, but we never got up there. So it doesn't say that we can't be there by the end of the week, but at the moment we're at the bottom of the range. So it's got much more of a downward side maybe bias. It was looking range bounds. Friday last week we finished in the middle of the range, but then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday we've been drifting down. Not able to move below day support that we've now tested twice, 108.44. So we may not be able to move below there until the job figures comes out. So that will be definitely a level to watch, maybe for a move back up the range. You can see you may have already missed the attempt to get long from down here, but I would be watching at the moment for price to, does it give you another opportunity to come down here and hold with this range bound nature to move back up this way? Doesn't say we can get to the top of the range, but head of the job figures, it doesn't look like 108.44 can be broken with any effort. Of course, we've got the news coming out later in the day as well, so that could drive it down and below. So with the 4-hour chart, there is in a downtrend, but clearly that support area has been protected. So you need to understand that. Now, I just want to put a fib in across this. There's a 4-hour downtrend here, but of course that's getting capped on support. Through the trading day, you could be looking just for a rally within the 4-hour structure. Drop it to the 15-minute chart. The 62% level, the 79% level, that's quite a nice level. It sort of starts to coincide with yesterday's peaks where resistance was forming. That's at 108.91. And of course, up to the 109 level, which capped price action yesterday twice. So depending on what the news does, I always like to be a seller at a high level. That 4-hour structure trend is down. The day chart trend is down whilst we're still sitting on support. So, 10900, 108.91 up to 10900 would be the area that I would watch later on in the day if we can get a nice healthy news spike. All right. Whether or not we can get up there as well, once the news has passed from the US, we could come down to 108.44 again today and hold. We moved below, held here to come up, and this last move down was a little bit short. So clearly that's being watched as support at the moment. So those are the areas to watch, to trade up or down from. The euro yen, it is changing its day chart trend to down. Let's not forget where the big dominant trend is. All right. Weekly trend is clearly up and the monthly trend is clearly up. Overextended, yes, but this correction here in the day chart is just some form of correction. It could be very short term. So not to say that you can't look for a rally to short, maybe got kind of a little mini double top here, moving down to a lower bottom. But if this only lasts short term, the bigger dominant trend is to the upside. So I don't know if I'm prepared to entertain this move down at the moment. It would be more preferable to look at the weekly range. and get yourself set for a pullback. I mean, it is quite a deep pullback down to 151.61 from where price is. That's 500 pips, but we may only get a very short-lived pullback. And, you know, that fib's not going to help us if it's a short-term pullback, but you could have it on there if you wanted to. I'll just be monitoring at the moment to see if this day chart trend is just very short-term. You could monitor. We're obviously falling down at the moment. Draw a fib across that range, which is this 4-hour range here. Well, this is the day chart range, but that's the move currently. Is just watch to see what price does on any form of rally. Does it rally to a level that you like, 62 or the 79? This could move further down so that a fib overlaps with broken support here. So if price was to come up, you know, if price could move down, say to here, and then you have a fib overlapping with resistance, and then you watch that level. If you see a nice tight entry, yes, that might be a very good opportunity to short, but very much mindful of Euro yen and the pound yen have been very strong. So we could just see a short-term pullback on the day chart before the buyers simply come back in. And we can't have a week down at the moment. There's last week's low. Not able to break last week's low at the moment. So monitor the movement down and then the rally back up. And does it rally back up to a very significant level of resistance that you like to sell down from? Euro pound is coming back down to support. Now the day trends, if we're looking at the significant highs and lows, it's actually still holding this upward trend. There's the most significant low to a higher top. And we're in between, we're back below or at, pretty much trading at monthly support from over here. So if you went to your monthly charts, that's that low here. It's a very difficult area. You know, we have been trading down over the last few days, but selling into that key support level is not bright because support could definitely hold. So just in a difficult area. The weekly trend is down, but of course we're into support. And the day trend really, until we break this low here, is up at 85.18. So this could be just getting right on its back foot. If we start to see this 79% level overlaps with monthly support, 85.47. You know, if you get a strong 4-hour candle closing back above here, that might be the signal that you want to, is this forming a bottom here to move back up the range? All right. Bit of a difficult pair that at the moment in all this support. Both the weekly and the monthly trends are down, but they're trading into support. So will those trends determine a move through support, or is support going to hold? Just in a difficult area there. So you could be monitoring that for a reversal back up. So I was talking on this chart just before as though it was the 4-hour chart, but that's the day chart. So to the 4-hour chart with that range of the day chart in place, we're having an outside reversal on the last 4-hour candle is showing support there. Is how much information do you need for strength to maybe trade out from this area? 15-minute chart. Breaking above that top does turn the 15-minute chart to up. And, you know, so let's say we move up. You could then draw a fib across this range that forms and then look for a smaller fib pullback by the dip for the potential for this to move up. All right. From a 4-hour chart perspective, if we are bottoming here, if we break above the high of the last 4-hour candle, you could simply put your trade long, put your stop below this low here. You can see all these 4-hour lows here that are forming below the monthly support level to get price back above. So are we bottoming out once more down there at the 85.47 level? All right, let's get into the pound yen and then the pound dollar. Pound yen, as I said on Tuesday, both the euro yen and the pound yen have been slowly but surely grinding to a halt. Yes, the euro yen has just turned over on the day chart trend at the moment. This can't yet turn over. It's very kind of consolidatory where it's just holding its trend. And really, getting long at such high levels, you want to look for a pullback to 182.12. Old resistance. Is that going to be support on a pullback? What's support here? Can it pull back? That was the last major pullback to there. You can see we're down to the 79% level. Maybe it's holding at 79% level to move back up. All right. I'd personally look to a different pair, but if you have to trade that pair, just showing you a 79% retracement of the range at the moment there. It could later in the day pull back to 182.14 and offer support. That's a very nice level. So monitor that range and what is your setup to buy, maybe trade back up to the top and challenge the top once more. So the euro yen's moving down because the euro dollar's been a lot weaker, whereas the pound dollar is holding its strength. So then the pound yen is, of course, as well holding its strength. It's not changing its day chart trend there, but it is rather consolidatory. Pound dollar, you see here on the 4-hour chart, it's very consolidatory. The level I've been watching is down here at 126.79. Weekly support in the 79% fib of this 4-hour range that had formed. You can see it's very consolidatory. It's waiting for the news items to come out, so it's very difficult to trade at the moment. But to the weekly chart, just to show you the reference levels. Holding up above weekly support at the moment, 126.79. Weekly trend is up there. As I've mentioned before, this imbalance here to the left, top of it is at 130, formed last year as the movement down occurred. Are we coming up to fill that imbalance over the next month? That's what I'm kind of eyeing at the moment. So key level clear to watch over the next couple of trading days is this 126.79. Does it get tested and can it hold? Because if it gets tested and hold, that could be your opportunity to get long to trade up from. Of course, here, this is very sideways, but I put this out on Telegram the other day. That range is really still in play. It's holding at the 62 level at the moment, ahead of support, but it could come down to support and the 79% level. That would be a much more desirable level. Just try and see if price can get down into that level. Can it hold? And is that where, we could just be forming a base across here over the next few trading days to start the next move up. You can see here, we had a base, we dropped below, we moved back above, or we're forming another base. So it's a little bit like a left shoulder area. Here's your head inverse, right shoulder area here, getting ready to move up potentially. It's all going to be driven, I'm sure, by the job figures on Friday. But if you wanted to get in ahead of the job figures and take a position, you're looking at 126.79. Can it hold a support there? On a much more micro level, if we drop down to the 15-minute chart, getting very good support just underneath 127 at the moment. 120, about 126.90. 12700 down to 126.90 is clear support there at the moment. Just color the area in. So you can watch the area for further support through the course of the day. You can see it's very choppy, but support's coming in down the area if you're looking to buy a dip. All right, the Aussie pairs. Now I put this out on Telegram this morning, watching 95.73 down to the 79% fib. Sorry, let me correct myself, down to the 62% fib at 95.79. So 95.79 down to 95.73 I put out this morning. Watch that level. You can see it dipped fractionally below, but it's definitely held the market. And is that dip going to hold for a further move up to challenge 96.87 now? As I said in my commentary this morning, this could actually move either way, because from the monthly chart perspective here, this top to the left, I said this last month, we could be coming up to form an hold and fail and form a left shoulder, head, right shoulder. So that is still potentially possible. Today's, or I should say this week's high has pretty much come in that area. Now the weekly trend is clearly up, and we've actually put in a little micro higher bottom here with a week up this week. And by the end of the week, we could be at the top of the candle. But at the moment, we're obviously withdrawing. So that weekly trend at the moment is up, but if we break below this little mini higher bottom, that's going to change things. And if that happens, we're probably moving back down to 93, this top here. So at the moment, the day chart is a little bit choppy consolidatory. We tried to move below 95.73 last week, but closed above on Friday there. Came up to the top of that little range there. And I've been watching, can that weekly top at 95.73 hold? It is holding at the moment. So there was an opportunity there early in the day to look at that area for a long. May still dip down once more through the course of the day, and you might get another opportunity. So that's the 4-hour look. Fib across from last week's low up to the current high of this week. 62 level at 95.79, weekly support at 95.73. All right, so came down. You had the opportunity to trade this as a swing point break above this swing point there. You could have got long. From a trend line break perspective, trend line was very aggressive, so it's very difficult. But I mean, there was some form of trend line break, but I don't like it when it chops across all those candles. But formed a higher bottom, broke above the last top, and that offered some pips. And if you took a long on the break of that swing top there, it is still showing you profit now. Okay, starting to maybe form a bit of support now at 96. So when the news comes out later, you can further watch down here at 95.73. Support came in earlier in the day. We may well see another dip down there and more supports. Okay, over the next 24 hours, if we do continue up today, a dip tomorrow down to 96 could offer very good support, because you can see it's starting to offer support here. All right, and it offered support earlier in the day here. So it was support here, and then a whole bunch of stops probably went off down to the support level, and then we've rushed back up and starting to hold back above 96. So when the news comes out later, watch 95.73 for further support. Aussie dollar. Now, I put this out, I think, on Tuesday when we had the interest rate decision. This is the colored area that I've been watching on the day chart. Not quite able to get down to that area yet, and we are reversing back up today. So we dipped down into the just below 62 last week, down to 66.04 day support. And then we've been trying to dip back down today. Couldn't quite get down to the 62 level. So 62 levels looks like it's being clearly watched by the buyers. And as I put out earlier in the week, from a weekly chart perspective, last month we went to a higher top. So are we forming a higher bottom here to move up long term? So are we forming a higher bottom here on the weekly to move up this way? If we have a day up tomorrow, after today, we're probably going to form a higher bottom to this bottom down here potentially. And it just starts to look a little bit more to the upside. At the moment, it's still lower bottom, lower top, but this could start to form a higher bottom area here. All right, so at the moment, I'm still watching to see what happens over the next 24 hours. Do we come into this area, hold, and then move up? Okay, so you've got 66.04 day support from here. Weekly support 65.73 price. I'm just watching at the moment. As we've got the big news event tomorrow, can we come into this area and then long term for the month get driven up here? Now, if we get driven up, there's no guarantee that price is going to go like so, because this is the next contentious area, 68.05 to 68.18. So that's the first step. Do we come into this area and hold, and then do we move up to this area? That area could hold from move down, or do we move through? So that's what I'm looking at. The weekly chart trend potentially is looking at forming a higher bottom. So I'm just looking to see where we finally bottom out at. And it'd be great if we could just have one last stab down to support. And of course, if that doesn't transpire, I'll have to look at some other way of maybe getting long if we start to move up. But you know, I'm not opening up any new positions, I don't think, now ahead of the US job figures, because you know, if the US job figures comes out very, very positive, that's going to be US dollar positive, and that Aussie dollar is going to move down. So I don't want to be getting long at the moment in case there's a very positive reaction for the US side on the job figures, because then that's going to drive price down. I may even drive price down to the area that I'm watching, but I don't want to be getting long high up if price can get driven down. So I'm just sitting in my hands watching. All right, we covered the euro pairs and the pound pairs, New Zealand yen. It's just touched the next monthly level at the moment. It is in an uptrend on the monthly and the weekly. And I'm anticipating this is going to move higher. It's doing this thing where you get a long move and then you get a tight calling effect on the day chart here. So whilst it's holding above support at the moment, I would much prefer to see this from an area perspective to show a very similar pullback to what it just did before, you know, like a 62% pullback on the day chart range, and then look to trade up. All right, because at the moment we're in the profit taking area of the previous fib. Previous fib was here. There's the 62% level, we're at the 127 extension. So now what I'm looking at is the same thing to happen once more. Pull back to the 62. And then can we move up? All right. So that's what I'm watching for there. So just watching to see if we can get a couple of days to pull back into the area and start to hold. New Zealand dollar. Now I put out, this is how I had my fib drawn this morning when I put it out on Telegram. I was looking at 79% level and the figure. Now price then only came up to the 62 level and then dropped, but then you could have adjusted the fib, and it doesn't matter if you held it like that or held it to Tuesday's high. We have come up and tested both highs. All right, but what I was emphasizing this morning was that the level to watch was 62, pretty much 6200 up to 6203. Was it once more going to be rejected? Now, even though it got driven up, I said this morning, I'm not just going to trade the level. I'm going to wait for a setup in case price gets driven above 6203. And yesterday it couldn't really get above. So Tuesday's trading, we got above, went up to 6212. Yesterday couldn't get anywhere near 6212, just above 6203. We have got driven up, but clearly the sellers are still watching the area because we're back below. Now that we've driven down, you could watch this range, that fall down range there, to see whether price comes up to that 62 or the 79 to further falter to move this way. All right, but for me now, I'll be waiting for the US news to come out this evening before looking at what does price do at that 6203 level. So from the day chart perspective, if you don't know what it looks like, here's that 6203 level. And we could come up to this high and fail. We could come up to this high and fail, because quite clearly we got driven above 6203 to this point, fell down, retested 6203, fractionally above to 6223, fell down to there, got a fraction short, fell down, and now we're once more testing here. And of that whole range, there's a 79% level overlapping at 6205. So there's lots of reasons why this is, even though price is trying to get driven above, it's not being able to hold above. So there's lots of reasons why this could quite clearly fail here. But ultimately, the fail is probably going to get dictated by the US news events. So whether or not once the news comes out, it gives you the opportunity to take a position afterwards. I mean, you could be taking a position now at or around 62, 62.03, 62.05, that's 79% fib, and just put your stop above the high here if you felt that this area is going to hold long term. Or wait for the news to come out and then see where price is sitting. If it's still holding at this area, then this is the area of resistance that the market is clearly watching to be resistance. As I said this morning, we have the New Zealand interest rate decision coming out next Wednesday. So this may well stay range bound ahead of that event as well, as we wait for that to come out. All right, so continue to watch 6200, 6203. And I did say on Tuesday that with the holiday in the US, unlikely to move strongly beyond 6203, and it traded above, held all yesterday to trade down. And of course, it's testing again today. So that's the clear level where the sellers are. All right, this movement up here is just stops going off that is sitting above this top, and even that top. But price action couldn't, price action is not holding above any one of those tops. So it's just stops going off. Retail traders that were short, got the stop sitting there, they get triggered, price moves above, and then there's no more buying going on and price drops back down. So this is the area to watch still later in the day. Of that bigger range, the 79%, 6205, down to 6200 there. That's the clear area to watch. Okay, dollar Canadian to the day chart. Now, this is the weekly range that got the fib drawn on, with it being so overextended to the downside on that weekly chart. As I've been anticipating, we'll move up to the 62.79 level. It is struggling to move through all these old weekly lows in play here. That's a monthly low, but a weekly low too. A weekly low there at 130.30 or 133.01 and 133.14. So we are forming a day chart uptrend. I did say on Tuesday we may form a higher bottom here on weekly support, 132.23, and that's transpiring. So what you really want to start, it would be much better as a trader to see, because it's still trying to move through this area, is just to see a very nice move up, first of all. And then we get 1 or 2 days down, and this area then is clear support, because at the moment, as we're trying to move above this high, it could still be resistance. You've got resistance here and resistance here. Really need, from a technical perspective, for price to come up and take out any orders that are sitting around these lows, and then see a pullback to supports. Okay, because there could be lots of sell orders sitting here. They can't be eroded, and then price just drops down. So all the sell orders need to be cleared out. And then can we pull back to supports, and then look for support to be support for a buying opportunity to continue the corrective move up against that weekly drop that we've just had, moving back up to the 62 or the 79. There's a nice imbalance in here that formed. So we could well be moving up if we can start to see a much better trend unfolding, that this imbalance here gets filled. Okay. So that's what I'd like to see at the moment. I don't like it where it's sitting. It's sitting clear at resistance at the moment. So that uptrend, trying to buy in that uptrend at the moment, trading into resistance is not ideal. So you just have to understand where to fight your battles. And I don't think that's a battle to fight for the buyers at the moment. Now, you could be looking this more at being a seller. And you simply, that if you want to be a seller here, you need to see certainly a very negative candle occur here, and start to fall back below this monthly low here at 132.62. So you want to see a nice reversal and a close back below 132.62 first of all. We can't do that. The buyers are maybe in control, but they're still finding a very strong battle through that resistance area. So it'd be nice to see a clear break north, then a pullback over the next over the next half a week as we move into next week. All right, dollar franc. I just look at a different pair at the moment. This is just stuck between weekly support 89.01 and day resistance at 90.02, pretty much 101 pip range. And we're kind of in the middle of the range, as I said on Tuesday. And this is the top of the range. This is the bottom of the range. You want to really looking to sell up here if you want to trade this pair to downside, and down here to trade to the upside. In the middle, it's a no-go zone, okay? So not much going on there on the dollar franc at the moment. All right, so dollar yen. Now it's just changing its day chart uptrend to down at the moment. Whether or not that's any significant change in trend at the moment, we have a very dominant weekly uptrend here, a very dominant monthly trend. It is worth noting after that very kind of strong collapse, it is worth just monitoring where are we in terms of, there's always the potential that this could be a rally up here rather than the next strong upward move. So it's always worth just having a look at where we're at. All right, we're not fading at a fib level of any nature at the moment. So, all right, so the weekly trend is clearly up. We may need a pullback though of 1 or 2 weeks. So I will just be monitoring to see where we pull back and whether or not we can get a significant healthy pullback, because there's the weekly major range. Okay. To get to a 62% level, where often we get pulled back to, that would be a very healthy pullback. And I don't know whether we can pull back that distance, especially if the news comes out over the next week, US dollar strength. That's just going to help the dollar yen keep moving up with the carry trade. So I don't know if we can get a very strong pullback. The last kind of micro pullback was here, 2 little negative weeks. So it is worth, I'm not looking to short this to the downside with a dominant trend, but if we just look at this area here on the day chart, which was this area here, and you can just measure it. I'm just going to put a box. That was the last kind of pullback on the weekly chart. So you could look and measure the same kind of decline. And that decline would come down to this area here, round about the 142.17 level. So I would just be monitoring for a very similar pullback like we had here before we started moving back up. All right, I'm not getting too excited that this is going to be any significant drawdown. So it's worth just monitoring that. Okay, there is the pullback. So we'll look for a very similar pullback. And get set for the next opportunity to be a buyer to trade up in line with this overall carry trade that's going on. Interest rate differential favors the US dollar side significantly to the yen side. As long as nothing's coming out from the US to dictate a change of that philosophy, they've already said from the Fed that potentially there's another 2 interest rate hikes at least on the US side. Then any form of corrective dip, if we get a similar dip as last time, that comes down approximately the 142.50 level. All right, so I'm going to keep those there and see what happens over the next week. Can we come down into these sorts of areas? Because if all that is what happens, it'll be a very short-lived dip, and then we're up for another 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. Okay, if we go back to that weekly chart, we haven't actually had a week down. Last time I had a week down was there. So it's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're in the 10th week without a dip. Yes, we've had some negative candles. 1 negative candle there, 2 negative candles there. That's that area that I just showed you. And we might just have a couple of negative candles here before continuing up. So I wouldn't get too excited about shorting. I'll just wait for the dip to finish. Okay, so monitor that. Now, of course, if you want to trade to the short side, there's a 4-hour downtrend in play here. You could just be monitoring the current 4-hour trend down. Up to my 15-minute chart. And that box doesn't work very well on the 15-minute chart. So that's the current 4-hour range. So, high up here at the 7% level, if you're looking for a short on this pair, would be a very good area to watch. However, that's with the central pivot point too. Don't forget where the dominant trend is. So if you're going to look to shorts, you want to be able to get a tight entry, get the risk out quick, because the movement to the downside could be very short-lived on these yen pairs. All right, so central pivot point there is at 144.43. 7% levels at 144.44. All right, just going to head into gold. I have to finish at 7:50 tonight to get into the next webinar. I've got my alarm on in case I forget. All right. Now gold, we had a very negative day yesterday. Back below weekly support here. All right, couldn't get up to the 62% retracement, but for those that maybe haven't been following gold, we've got this very significant monthly 3 tops or weekly 3 top, triple top area. Are we getting a long-term shift to the downside? If we're going to get a long-term shift, we could be down towards retesting 16.14 over the coming months. At the moment, we've broken below this level of weekly support, and now we're trying to contend with this old high over here, 1916. We're trading fractionally above there at the moment. And on Tuesday, I said monitor this day chart range for a 62.79% pullback. It actually hasn't been able to get to the 62 level, and then it's reversed. It did close below that weekly level, fractionally above at the moment. So the fact that we get a strong reversal ahead of the 62 is just weakness. And you have a 4-hour downtrend now. So get rid of that larger fib. If we have failed, just failed at last week's high, you could monitor this 4-hour downtrend now for a rally. 79% level lines up perfectly with this kind of left shoulder area. So around about the 1930 level for a head and shoulder pattern on the 4-hour chart, continuation pattern moving down. All right. If it was trading gold, I would be looking up at that high area. You can see where, look at all these 4-hour tops here. 1, 2. When we came back up, formed 2 more. This is just a false break of those 2 highs as well. More highs here. So that's clearly where the market's starting to look at where all the sell orders are all congregating approximately from 1937 downwards. 1937 to 1930. So 1930 to 1937 is where the sellers are at the moment. So look to that area if you want to trade gold. All right, so it's a little bit difficult at the moment. Markets are, waiting for the news items. News items coming out most immediately from the US are tonight's non-farm employment change figures, unemployment. Sorry, let me just go back to the top day up here. So let me correct myself. 10:15 ADP non-farm employment change and the unemployment claims data. So that is employment figure data there for today. Midnight ISM services PMI data, job openings, and then the bigger job figures and the unemployment rate comes out tomorrow evening at 10:30. But this area here from 10:15 to midnight will potentially certainly drive the market. So I will personally be waiting for at least at 10:30 items to come out before I start thinking about what I'm doing. And often the ISM services PMI data can be a very strong driver as well. So it is potentially worth waiting for the midnight news to pass and then look for setups, okay? Now, if you want to carry on with me this evening with Nathan in our quick start webinar, I'll give you the link. You can register at the webinar page as well, but here's the link in any event. I'm going to call it an evening and get ready for that event, but there's the link if you want to move along and join us. And before I just finish up, next week, so Quick Start's going to start in the next 15 minutes. Next week, more analysis on Tuesday, so we better catch up with how the market's sitting after the job figures. Next Wednesday, I'm going to go through the MACD indicator with you. We also have the Inner Circle webinar following that webinar. And then we've got live forex market review on Thursday. So that's what's coming up from me over the next week. If you've still got the time, carry on into the next webinar, and you may well see something there that interests you. And if you want to get access to the Quick Start setup, Nathan will be able to organize that for you. You just need to contact him, but he will be taking you through what it is. I will be talking about the importance of trends, and you can ask questions in there and we'll be answering your questions as well. Okay. So thanks everybody. Any final questions before we finish? Azur, I know you've been telling me at the start of the webinar that you've been going well, so that's great. So with that in mind, wish you all the best for the rest of the week. And if you have the time, I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one.